Welcome back to the We See Monsters channel. I'm your host Jenna, and today I have a story involving a new topic for you guys, but it is a topic that I am very familiar with. The story involves somebody who decided to delve into astral projection and began seeing some shit on the other side. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with astral projection, I am going to try and explain it the best way I can, but it is a little difficult for me to explain something that scientists can't even explain. So, astral projection is a phenomenon that occurs when you are between the state of being awake and being asleep. So it's very, very similar to lucid dreaming, but the difference is that you can actually travel to different dimensions and universes with your conscious mind if you are extremely experienced at astral projecting. Scientists describe it as your conscious mind leaving your body when you're in the state in between asleep and awake. And your conscious mind is sometimes referred to, I guess, as your astral body. I don't think I'm wording that correctly. But because it's essentially a projected double of yourself, kind of like your spirit, that leaves your physical body and is able to explore everything around you and possibly so much more than that. There have been many scientific studies on the theory of astral projection, and as I mentioned before, scientists agree it is indeed very real, but they don't know exactly how it works. I highly recommend going down the rabbit hole on astral projection because it gets even crazier than that. But essentially it's similar to taking shrooms or acid, except obviously you are sober and it's your own conscious mind that is able to make it happen. I personally have studied astral projection quite a bit over the years, and I have been able to do it myself, but my experience is a story for another day. Nothing scary happened to me, thank God, but I've definitely heard of some people seeing some pretty scary entities during their astral travels. As I mentioned earlier, the person in this story definitely had an unfortunate experience when they attempted to astral project. So let's go ahead and jump right into their story. I haven't slept in 4 days. My very being is begging, practically crying out for me to just lay down for a couple hours. I can't do that now, though. I must stay awake. If I let myself drift off, I know it will get me. I'm writing this as a warning to anyone interested in the subject of astral projection. Stay away. Trust me when I say that no good will come from it. I know that there are things out there, things that aren't human, things that will take any chance imaginable to latch onto someone. I know this all because they're after me. A week ago, I found an online forum dedicated to that of astral projection. I read countless posts from people describing their otherworldly experiences when they left their body. People talked about flying, sprinting through space, and consciously manipulating their dreams to appeal to them. I was fascinated. I've always loved the feeling of dreams and the feeling of being transported to another world inside of your mind. So I was very seriously wanting to test this out. I quickly looked up how one would attempt astral projection and found several methods on how to quickly achieve such a state of consciousness. I made sure first, however, that there was no negative health effects or mental cautions that came with these kinds of experiences. To my elation, there were very little negative effects or warnings. The ones that were listed sounded like bullshit too, so I decided that the next morning, I would attempt astral projection. God, I wish I could go back now and tell myself to stop. I wish I could tell myself what happened that stupid morning. It all seems so long ago now. It almost feels like that morning was a nightmare that my brain dreamt up, but I know that's not true. I can still remember exactly how it went, and I know for certain what happened and what followed was anything but a dream. I got home that night and went to sleep without a problem. I had my alarm set for 5:30 that morning, and I woke up extremely tired. All the websites said that I needed to be in a drowsy and relaxed state of mind, so I got up, turned on the lights, and laid back down after being woken, attempting to project. I laid there for what felt like hours, doing everything that I was told to do on these websites, and at first, I didn't feel anything, but suddenly, I noticed that there was an odd feeling developing in my chest. That's the feeling that grew in my chest, and the same feeling that I felt spreading everywhere throughout my body. I felt it reach all through to the edges of my toes and fingers, and then suddenly, I felt myself lift off the ground. My eyes were still closed, but I knew that I had elevated and had begun to float. I opened my eyes, and I was above my body. Now, this was a very odd and very surreal thing. I can't describe how odd it is to be standing there staring at yourself whilst simultaneously seeing yourself laid down motionless. However, this didn't really make me feel any fear in that moment. What freaked me out was the fact that the lights in my room were off. I distinctly remembered turning them on, which is why it was so unnerving to see. Something that also added to my immediate levels of uneasiness was the fact that outside my windows, the sky appeared to be pitch black. Not nighttime, but pitch black. Like being in a room with no windows and no light at all. That was the sky. I quickly looked around my room to make sure everything else was normal. Despite the lights and the sky outside, everything appeared to be normal. I decided to try and walk around my house a little bit, and to my further surprise, every light in my house was off. It was all dark. The sky outside, the rooms, even the house itself just seemed to emanate pure darkness. My exploring of the house was quickly interrupted, however. I was in the middle of looking in my guest bedroom when a door slammed loudly upstairs. Now, for the record, I live alone. My house is fairly small, and I almost never have visitors. There was no way this was somebody who had just decided to stop by. I stood there shocked, not knowing what to do. None of the sites I read said anything about darkness or doors slamming. I snapped out of it and decided to head back up the stairs to see what had made the noise. I quickly began to check all of the upstairs rooms. I found absolutely nothing, and just as I was about to head downstairs, I realized what the sound was. The door to my room had been slammed shut. I quickly made my way to the end of the hallway and stared at the door that I had most certainly left open. First the lights, and now this? I definitely wasn't alone. I opened the door and hesitantly made my way inside. It was much darker than the last time I had been in there, but the room seemed empty, except for my motionless body that still lay on the bed. I quickly checked under the bed and in my closet, but still found nothing. I laughed at myself nervously for being so ridiculously paranoid. This wasn't real after all. I mean, what was there to be scared about? It's not like anything could hurt me. But then I stopped and I looked at my shoulder. Something had dripped on it. Something black. Something that came from the ceiling. I looked up, and that was when I first saw it. I don't even know how or what else to say. It was just a thing. It was some sort of monstrous creature with arms that were longer than its body. He was skinny to the point where his skin pulled horrifyingly tight over every bone on its mangled body. It walked like a spider while contorting its limbs, all whilst having black sludge-like fluid leaking from its mouth. That was what was crawling on my ceiling. I quickly screamed and backed up. I was horrified. I had never seen anything quite as terrifying in my life. The creature dropped onto the floor, and looked directly into my eyes. Its eyes were empty sockets of pure darkness. I watched in horror as the gray skin around his eyes wrinkled, as his face contorted into a smile that was twice as big as its face. It had millions of tiny needle-like teeth. It continued to smile at me as I lay frozen in fear. It then crawled over to my body. The way it moved seemed so artificial. It moved like it was a claymation figure. My horror was only amplified when I saw it begin to drool and spit its strange black liquid all over the right leg of my body. It looked at the now blackened limb and grinned wider. I realized quickly that this had to stop. I had to wake up. I made a quick dive for my body and tried to pull myself back into my body. I saw the creature lunge at me, but it just barely missed me. I woke up screaming. I winced in effort as I tried to get out of the bed, but realized in horror that I couldn't. I also noticed that there was this awful searing pain on my shoulder. I quickly called 911, and I was taken to the hospital. The doctors said they couldn't make heads or tails of it, and they ruled that it was likely a psychological or neurological issue. They told me to get some sleep at home and to come back tomorrow. I didn't tell them about the creature. I didn't tell them about my astral projection. What would I tell them? A creature from hell vomited on my leg, and I woke up unable to move it? After several hours of thinking, I decided it was probably just a temporary problem caused from my intense astral projection. That's what I get for trusting the internet on something like this. I went to bed that night scolding myself for being so careless and throwing myself into something like astral projection so quickly. That night, however, was the cause of even more horror. I dreamt I was back. I dreamt that I was back in that God-forsaken dark version of my room. There I was again, watching my body lay motionless on the bed. I watched in heightened horror as the creature from before lowered itself from the ceiling down onto the bed where my body lay. I couldn't move. I could not physically stop myself from getting away from that thing. I continued to watch, unable to look away, as the creature brought itself down right next to me. Even though it was whispering to my body, I heard the words it spoke right in my ear. It whispered in a hoarse and inhuman voice, one that sounded like that of a smoker who had recently been gargling wood screws. The words it spoke to me, I'll never forget. The creature leaned down next to me and whispered in my ear, "You belong to me now." The creature then rapidly shifted position, placing itself directly above my left leg. I watched and felt sick as I watched the creature retch and excrete more black bile and saliva onto my left leg. I wanted to move. I wanted to run. I couldn't. All I could bring myself to do was scream. That scream was enough to wake myself up from that terrible dream. Unfortunately, the nightmare didn't end when I woke up. Following the incident of my previous astral projection session, I woke up completely unable to move or feel my left leg. That was 4 nights ago, and I haven't slept since. I've managed to drag myself to the computer, bathroom, and kitchen and such. I have searched the internet for anything at all I can do to help stop this from happening, but I have found nothing. I'm writing this as a warning to anyone interested in the subject of astral projection. Do not attempt to astral project. Do not venture into a world you know nothing about. What lies in that world is only hostility and horror. They're after us. It's after us. I know it. I know it because it's after me. I know it because I don't have much time left. I don't know how much longer I can stay awake. I know that the next time I fall asleep, it will get me for sure. I know this because I can see it. It's standing right in front of me. It seems like with every hour that passes, the room becomes darker. The darker the room gets, the more it becomes visible to me. It's watching me, smiling that horrible smile that I saw it smile that day that I made the worst decision of my life. Please, don't meddle with astral projection. Don't make the same mistake I did. I'll be gone soon, but I'm trying to get this message out to people who might make the same choice as me. Please, please, please don't. It will get you. It's not long before it's gonna get me, and nobody deserves the hell that I'm slowly descending to. I've been hearing it whispering to me for the past couple hours, and it's slowly built into a yell. It's calling to me. It knows that I belong to it and that I can't stop it. That's why he's smiling. All it's been repeating is one phrase. You still belong to me. For more spooky content, you can click the links below to check out my TikTok and listen to the We See Monsters podcast.